But campus is by no means perfect. One of the biggest struggles in 2005 was a continued effort to combat hostility toward minority groups on campus. Racism and homophobia were covered prominently in the Daily Collegian and were the focus of many student forums and other efforts to combat such intolerance. Crime, particularly sexual assault, also plagues the university community.
It could be a very hostile and very contentious racial climate here at Penn State that a lot of students of colors or students of oppressed groups or students of different sexualities, students of different minorities go through.
I think the climate, the queer climate here at Penn State has a long way to go, but it's better than it's been by far in the past. Over the years, we've acquired LGBTA Student Resource Center, which has expanded a couple times. There are definitely advocates both on the student end and administrative end for the queer community. Having said that, there's really a lot of things that we could be doing, and I know there are students who experience a lot of negative like speech. Some have been physically harassed. Some people have gotten like their property vandalized, things like that. So things like that definitely happen here, and that is unacceptable, and we need to constantly be working to change that. I haven't really experienced anything like that. I don't know if it's because I'm not as stereotypically what one would believe to be a queer person, or if it's because I am so visible. I don't really know why, but I haven't really experienced a lot. But there are definitely people here who have, and that needs to change. That's something that we need to address, need to recognize does happen at Penn State, and need to be working on in the best facility possible.
This past year, I received death threats from a residence hall, saying that someone saying that they're gonna lynch me, drag me into the mountains, beat the skin off of me. They're responsible for killing all my family. And then, as students assembled, below, they became more general and more, directed more to the group, where different students were able to receive these threats at the same time, and so things like that. The police were called, and the result of it, the police said there's nothing more they could do. They had a brief talk in the building, and just things like that. And that's just an example or one incident of how Penn State doesn't have a firm stance against this kind of behavior. And it's a behavior that goes on frequently here on campus. It might not be heard of, it might not be reported as much. Students feel either, for whatever reasons, being that they're scared or feeling content, or the apathy with the situation, or just that nothing will be done. Penn State's kind of proven that there's nothing more they could do. It's not that big of a deal. It's not that important.
One of the interesting things about Penn State is that we're a very, on the whole, liberal area, right in the middle of central Pennsylvania, which is one of the most conservative places ever, and more so closed-minded than conservative. And I think it would be really great if Penn State could influence the surrounding communities and just bring about more open-mindedness.
A lot of students at Penn State come from small-town Pennsylvania, where they have not had a lot of exposure to people of different backgrounds. I think we as an educational institution have an obligation to help students be exposed to different kinds of cultures and people from different backgrounds, and to do that in a non-threatening kind of an environment where we can learn to understand each other. A lot of times when people confront difference, they think that means it's wrong or it's threatening. They don't understand it, and I think we as educators have to help facilitate that kind of understanding so we're not threatened by it and fearful of it, but we just learn to understand it better. That will then prepare us to work in a global world where we have no choice. We're going to confront people who are different from us, and I think as an educational institution, we have to help students understand that and be ready for it.
So there are some people who've had the word faggot keyed across their car, which is completely unnecessary. People have had I know there's this one girl who had sort of a rainbow flag outside of her apartment, and they have ripped it down a couple times, and things like that. There are some people, I don't really think there's much classroom discrimination, but I'm sure it happens. Just because you don't hear about it doesn't mean it doesn't happen, particularly downtown late at night when people are intoxicated. A couple or even just friends will be holding hands walking down the street, and particularly two men. It just seems to be society isn't ready for two men to be holding hands together. And they'll be like catcalled or yell faggot at or some just sort of unnecessary comment. And most people just sort of brush it aside as part of what happens to you as a gay man or as a woman or a transgendered person or a bisexual couple. Things like that have happened to me. I mean, they're always sort of the most common thing is that if you're walking down the street holding your girlfriend's hand, that a gentleman will see you and make some allusion to the fact that we would have a better time if we were to run off with him.
On Valentine's Day, the LGBTA group Allies held a Flaunt Your Homosexuality Kiss Out on the steps of Old Main Lawn. And we decided to publish a photo in the paper the next day because we thought it was newsworthy that they were doing this. 2 days later, we printed a letter from a student named Chris Kowalczyk, and his letter criticized our decision to run the photo on the front page, saying, he thought it was disgusting that we printed a photo of two gay people kissing on the front page, and he shouldn't have to wake up to see two queers on the front page of the paper. So we printed the letter thinking that his opinion needed to be heard because we represent all viewpoints across campus. And afterwards we received about 300, 400 emails, mostly people criticizing Kowalczyk and his supposed homophobia, and some people criticizing our decision to run his letter, saying it perpetuated hate speech and bigotry. The thing I think is most interesting about that is that 40 years ago, I think you might have had, while the civil rights movement was going on, you might have had a photo of two black people kissing on the front page of the paper, or an interracial couple, and you could have gotten a similar letter about saying, they thought it was disgusting that they saw two black people kissing on the front page of the paper, or a white and a black person kissing on the front page of the paper. But I don't think you would see that today, at least not a letter to the editor of the paper. People would think that's outrageous. And it's the point where you don't have things happening on Old Maiden Lawn in 2005 where you see Flaunt Your Sexuality Kiss Out, where you see a black person and a white person kissing. That's why you have a gay couple kissing right now on the front page of the paper. So maybe 50 years from now, that won't be an issue, and 50 years from now, you could have a photo on the front page of the paper, two gay people kissing, and nobody would even care.
We are working with administration in incorporating transgendered issues more into the university's policies, and hopefully when you're all watching this, that will already have happened. That would be wonderful. And working a lot with the LGBT Student Resource Center. We've had the groups expand from Allies to Undertones, which is an LGBTA group for people of color, and Shalem, which is a queer LGBTA group, interfaith group. So things are really expanding. The groups are starting to really work together and see eye to eye, and I think that's really wonderful and hope it continues.
Different students have taken up their own demands and suggestions to make towards the university, to make the campus climate more comfortable, to see that diversity is truly being fostered and cultivated on academic space rather than having spaces off campus set up for diversity. Through this, different students and different student organizations have been able to approach university personnel, university administrators, as far as things that they like to see. Like there's a Asian fraternity and sorority who have taken upon themselves to draft up a program outline for Asian American Studies program, which they'd like to see, implemented about the next few years.
We had a lot of crime happen in spring 2005. I mean, we had a shooting, I think we had a stabbing, we have a missing district attorney, we had a student die in a fire, which we don't know the last time a student has died in a fire, if ever, at Penn State. That was really a tragic event. Like I said, we have a missing district attorney in Center County. For the last 4 years, people have been wondering where Penn State student Cindy Song was. She's been missing for 3 or 4 years now. In the last couple of years, sexual assault has also been a big concern. Women have been, groped on Calder Way, leading to calls for better lighting. Girls have been, raped in elevators, or there was, a gang rape on a lawn on Garner Street a couple years back. So people have been really concerned about the prevalence. You haven't seen as much this semester, but just women being randomly attacked on the street, or being randomly attacked and dragged into cars. It's actually happened. the 4 years we're here. I know it's been really scary for a lot of women I've known, and it's really led to a push for safety on campus and downtown. They've added blue light emergency phones in certain places. They have increased lighting in certain places.
When you get into the sexual assault realm, there's a lot of unreported sexual assault in the queer community, and that most definitely happens here as part of some people's Penn State experience, which is very unfortunate. And I know there are a lot of people working, a lot of the women's groups in particular work a lot on sexual assault. I think everyone needs to remember that it's not just women who are assaulted, it's men, straight, gay, women, bisexual women, transgendered people sexually assaulted and physically abused very often. So those are things we sort of just need to keep in the back of our mind and be working on when we're working on all these other issues, is always remember the queer community is a part of the regular community as well.